You're walking through a parking garage at night. The lights are dim. Your footsteps echo a little too loudly. You feel your pace quicken before you've even decided to walk faster. Your eyes drift to the shadows between the cars. Nothing is there. You know nothing is there, but your body doesn't believe you. Your heart rate climbs. Your palms go damp. Somewhere underneath your rational mind, an alarm is ringing. And it has been ringing in human bodies for almost 2 million years. The real answer for why this happens is far stranger than simple nerves. You are not just afraid of the dark. You are running software built for a world that mostly doesn't exist anymore. And tonight, when the sun goes down outside your window, that same system will quietly switch on inside you, whether you want it to or not.
For most of human history, the dark was not symbolic, it was a hunting ground. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors lived in landscapes shared with lions, leopards, hyenas, and saber-toothed cats, animals built specifically to kill primates roughly your size. Fossil evidence from early hominin sites shows puncture marks from big cat teeth on ancient skulls. Whole skeletons show signs of having been dragged, eaten, and discarded far from where the animal first caught them. Nighttime was when most of these predators hunted, because they could see far better in low light than your ancestors could. So evolution did not have the luxury of giving you a brain that calmly assessed risk after the sun went down. It built you a brain that assumed danger first and asked questions later.
That assumption lives in a small, almond-shaped structure deep in your skull called the amygdala. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux, who has spent decades mapping the brain's fear circuitry at New York University, found that the amygdala can trigger a fear response before the rest of your brain even finishes processing what you're looking at. A shadow that might be a person, a rustle that might be nothing. Your amygdala doesn't wait for proof. It reacts first, and your conscious mind catches up several hundred milliseconds later, sometimes only after your body has already flooded itself with stress hormones. Why would evolution build something so trigger-happy? Because in the world your ancestors lived in, hesitation killed you, and a false alarm cost you nothing but a racing heart. A smoke detector that goes off every time you make toast is annoying, but a smoke detector that fails to go off during an actual fire gets you killed. Ness argued that natural selection shapes our alarm systems the same way. It would rather you flinch at 1,000 harmless shadows than miss the one shadow that's actually a predator. Your fear response isn't broken when it overreacts to an empty parking garage. It's doing exactly what it was built to do, just in a world that no longer matches the one it was designed for. And the stress hormones behind that reaction are older and more powerful than most people realize. Stanford neuroendocrinologist Robert Sapolsky has spent his career studying how the body responds to threat, both real and imagined. He often points out that a gazelle on the savanna and a human in a stressful meeting activate almost the exact same physiological cascade. Cortisol rising, blood sugar spiking, digestion shutting down, blood flow redirected to the muscles. The gazelle's stress response ends the moment the predator is gone. It shakes it off, almost literally, and goes back to grazing within minutes. Your stress response, on the other hand, can stay switched on for hours, sometimes days, because your brain is sophisticated enough to imagine threats that haven't happened yet. The parking garage shadow, the unread message from your boss, the strange noise downstairs at 2 a.m. Your body cannot always tell the difference between a lion and a thought.
So why specifically the dark? Why does this particular fear show up in nearly every culture, in nearly every era, almost universally in early childhood? Researchers studying childhood development have found that fear of the dark tends to emerge around age 2, peaks in early childhood, and shows up regardless of whether a child has ever had a frightening nighttime experience. That timing isn't random. It lines up almost exactly with the developmental stage when, in ancestral environments, a child would have started moving independently away from the safety of an adult or a fire. A toddler wandering at night
is a toddler at maximum risk. So the fear doesn't need to be taught. It arrives pre-installed, the same way a fear of heights does, the same way an instinctive flinch from snakes and spiders does, long before a child has any direct evidence those things are dangerous.
This is where fire enters the story, because fire is the one invention that briefly let your ancestors push back against the dark. Primatologist Richard Wrangham, who has studied the role of fire in human evolution at Harvard, has argued that controlled fire didn't just provide warmth and cooked food, it extended the day. It let groups gather in one lit, defensible spot after sunset, instead of scattering into the dark alone. Communal sleeping around a fire wasn't comfort for its own sake. It was a survival strategy, because more eyes and a wall of flame meant fewer successful ambushes. That single behavior, sitting together in firelight while the world outside went black, may be one of the oldest shared human rituals there is. Notice how a campfire, even now, still pulls people into a circle, still lowers voices, still feels less like decoration and more like instinct.
Biologists studying vigilance behavior in wild animals have noticed something that maps almost perfectly onto human nighttime anxiety. Ecologist Daniel Blumstein, who studies how animals balance feeding against the risk of being eaten, has shown that nearly every prey species increases its scanning behavior, its head movements, its overall alertness, specifically in low light and unfamiliar terrain. The animal isn't reacting to an actual predator most of the time. It's reacting to reduced visibility itself, because reduced visibility is statistically correlated with danger, whether or not danger is currently present. Humans do the same thing without realizing it. Walk into an unfamiliar dark room and notice how your eyes move. You're not looking for anything specific. You're scanning. The exact same low-grade vigilance behavior an antelope shows at dusk, running quietly in the background of an otherwise ordinary evening.
Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This system was extraordinarily well calibrated for the world it evolved in. It is almost comically miscalibrated for the world you actually live in now. You're statistically far more likely to be harmed by a car, a staircase, or a bad decision made in broad daylight than by anything lurking in a dark parking garage. And yet, the ancient alarm doesn't update based on statistics. It updates based on darkness, unfamiliarity, and isolation. The same three variables that mattered 600,000 years ago. Meanwhile, the things that are actually most likely to harm you today rarely trigger any fear response at all, because they don't look like a predator in the shadows. They look like a steering wheel, a sedentary afternoon, a second helping of dessert. Your fear system protects you against threats that mostly no longer exist, while staying nearly silent about the ones that do.
This mismatch shows up everywhere once you start looking for it. Public speaking ranks among the most commonly reported fears in the modern world, and researchers have linked it directly to ancestral concerns about social exclusion. Because for most of human history, being rejected by your group wasn't an embarrassing moment. It was a potential death sentence. A solitary human on the savanna without a tribe had almost no chance of surviving a single bad night. So your brain still treats a room full of judging eyes the same way it once treated banishment from the only group capable of keeping you alive. Social media notifications hijack the exact same threat detection circuitry that once scanned the tree line for movement. Except now, the tree line is a phone screen.
So the next time you feel your pulse spike in a dark room for no clear reason, you are not malfunctioning. You are not weak or irrational or overreacting in some embarrassing way. You are running a survival system that kept nameless ancestors alive long enough to have children who eventually had you. It is a system built by hundreds of thousands of nights spent listening for footsteps in the dark, tuned by every ancestor who froze at the wrong shadow and lived, while the ones who didn't freeze quietly disappeared from the gene pool.